as university students or graduates, sometimes you go out to seek job opportunities, and in reality you don't know how to start, what to do, or how to highlight your skills better.
Welcome to WITT. Hi, I'm Megan. I talk with founders, investors, and operators working in tech. My aim is to inspire you with their stories and perspectives. Through this podcast, I want to amplify the voice of women working in tech. If you want to support WITT, then make sure you follow us on your favourite podcasting app. Then you won't miss any future episodes. Today we're joined by Dafne, an entrepreneur redefining career access for everyone. As the founder of Hei Dingo, she's bridging the gap between talent and opportunity. Let's rock and roll. Hi, Dafne. Welcome to WITT. It's great to have you on the podcast.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm very excited.
I'd love to kick off our conversation with a lightning round. Is that okay?
Let's do it.
Awesome. First question. Are CVs irrelevant?
In today's world, I do believe that they're starting to not make sense, especially with how the world is moving so fast. And I like to share with people that I talk to that they should focus on other things instead of CVs.
Awesome. Second question. Morning person or night owl?
Both. Wherever you have time, if you need a one-on-one, I'm there. I just get things done.
Awesome. What's the worst job search advice you've ever heard?
Applying directly and not doing anything else. That's the most horrible thing.
Fourth question. Favorite book or podcast?
Podcast, there's a Mexican one that is called Chisme Corporativo, and I love it because they break down all things startups, all things finance, and they make it so easy to understand.
And what would you say is a red flag in a company that job seekers always miss?
I think consistency in their mission and values. If you don't understand what the company has in mission and values, it's hard to also grow when you join them.
Okay. Simple. I like it. Finish this sentence. The future of hiring is...
The future of hiring is personal branding.
Mexican summer or Finnish winter?
Sorry, but Mexican summer.
That's fair. And then I have a question about your company, but what does Hei Dingo mean?
Well, Hei is the simple way to say hi in Finnish. And Dingo, it's an Australian dog that is very wild, but is always hunting. So we like to call ourselves dingoes, hunting for opportunities.
Ah, clever. I like it. And then what is your go-to gif?
I'm a fan of The Office, and I really like when Michael Scott goes going annoyed face and ugly face.
Okay, I like it. And then the last question for the lightning round is, if you had to describe your entrepreneurial journey in 3 emojis, what would they be?
The star face, excited. The face that is like melting.
Okay.
And the lightning emoji.
The lightning symbol?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, awesome. Those are great emojis. That was great. That was awesome. Thank you so much for answering my lightning round questions. And I want to jump a bit into your background. So I believe you were born in Mexico and then lived in the US and are now building your company, as we said, Hei Dingo, in Finland. That's so cool. Tell me about that. Tell me how that happened.
Well, I think I share the same experience as many women that come to Finland. You fall in love, you think that this is a wonderful opportunity, and then you find yourself questioning, what else? What is it to me that I can also achieve in Finland? that is not only on my personal side. And so that's how, going back to how I grew up in the US, it's family matters. You don't have a
Mm-hmm.
choice when you're um, an adolescent or growing up. And I had a hard time when we moved back to Mexico, but I think that when you kind of grow up with these challenges of finding yourself, you build
Mm-hmm.
an identity, and that's why I'm really in love with personal branding, and I can experience that in Finland very well.
Yeah. Awesome. And I want to talk a bit about the future of work, let's say, right? So obviously I haven't entered the job market yet. WITT is kind of my side hustle, if you will. But I'm very interested in how the market works and how it's changing. Tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, well, I think everyone's going to be interested in hearing how businesses are thinking about talent right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know a lot of people don't like to call ourselves that we are the talent, but at the end of the day, we have superpowers, and companies, people that are hiring, are always thinking about what skill or superpower is lacking in the team and in the culture to help us get to that next level or growth phase, as we like to call it. And that's, I believe, the biggest mistake that we do when we finish university or are starting to job seek in another country. We don't think about that skill that we have as superpower to fit
Mm-hmm.
in or to bring value. We just think about our last role, our degree, but not in our capabilities. And if we were to focus more on that, not only would companies grow, but also our careers would evolve much better and much faster.
Definitely. I totally agree. And with your company, how does I don't really understand. I obviously researched your company, but how do you kind of help people do this? How do you help them kind of put themselves out there to employers?
Well, we've got to discover that after COVID, things are moving much faster and different completely from
Mm-hmm.
back before COVID, basically, which means that not only do you have to sell yourself more effectively, but you also have to understand where your industry, your field, or even the type of role that you're approaching is going, because that means that not only, for example, will you have to learn how to use AI, or
Yeah.
will you have to develop your podcast skills like you are today,
Mm-hmm.
but that also means that you have to learn how to sell yourself. And I believe that what we are capable of doing at Hei Dingo is collecting all that data that we have in the web, in websites of companies, and predicting those trends of skills and where we might be going or heading towards. We will
Mm-hmm.
not only be able to understand the employer branding and help companies effectively make an employer branding that attracts the correct talent, because there's
Yeah.
amazing talent everywhere, but sometimes you need very specific kind of skills and talent. And on the other hand, what we're lacking as professionals is understanding the market. As university students or graduates, sometimes you go out to seek job opportunities, and in reality you don't know how to start, what to do,
Mm-hmm.
or how to highlight your skills better. We're talking about personal branding. So in Hey Dingo, we'll be able to show you a dashboard that highlights what skills best match you to certain companies, and then rank you to help you understand exactly how to create your personal brand on LinkedIn, your CV. But not only that, we'll continue to advise you with a AI assistant to be able
Mm-hmm.
to help you not only scale a corporate ladder, which doesn't exist, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
but also continue to grow. Maybe you have side gigs like your podcast.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you're talking a lot about personal branding, and I wanted to get a better understanding of like what do you think personal branding actually means?
That's a good question, because a lot of people say that it's posting on LinkedIn, but
Mm-hmm.
in reality, it's your identity and personality that you put out there. But before you know what you have to say to the world, for example, me right now talking to you, you're gonna have to dive deep into who you are, what's your interest, why you are interested in saying what you want to say in this podcast, for example. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be a podcast. It can be an interview. It can be a hiring also someone, because we forget that not only job seekers need a personal brand, but the recruiter from the company that has a employer branding. So that is what it means to me. Collecting all sorts of personal information of yourself and knowing what to say, when to say it, and understanding that you don't have to say it all.
Okay, I like it. It sounds so simple when you say it like that. But I mean, I feel like a lot of people have a lot of trouble with just, putting themselves out there and talking to people. So it's really interesting to get your perspective. I want to switch gears just a little bit and talk about why do you think female founders need to embrace selfish ambition, as you said? And like, how can it be done? How can you do this?
Hey, good question. Because what comes to my mind when someone says, I don't want to be too selfish, and especially in the Finnish market, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
because that's a cultural thing, and I respect and admire that. But there's another side to being selfish, and it's that um, sometimes we are the first ones that have to be our own cheerleaders, and if we don't value the goals, the milestones that we have achieved or are
Mm-hmm.
interested in achieving, then either you lack conviction or you just stay stuck. So being selfish is not bad, especially as a founder. You sometimes have to put yourself first and be very, very specific with who you want to build and
Mm-hmm.
what kind of podcast do you accept to be in. And that is why I'm here, because I'm also a bit selfish, but I'm happy to support someone that
Yeah.
is growing in the industry too.
Oh, very, very nice. But yeah, no, I think it's totally, totally true. And I have quite a lot of experience with this kind of being in my father's shadow, you could say, because obviously he is very influential. But I'm trying to kind of make a name for myself. And, but yeah, I think it's important for people to understand that, being selfish is not always a bad thing. So, yeah. But let's dig into your frameworks, which you sent to me in the prep questions. I think you talked about this three-part personal branding framework. Let's unpack that. Like, what is that?
Yeah, the more I get into personal branding, the more clear it is of
Mm-hmm.
how everyone should look at it. So it's simple, like you mentioned. And so I like to start with making it simple from the clarity perspective of understanding yourself, so self-awareness, and knowing what makes you stand out. And what I always ask people that I mentor or workshops I give
Mm-hmm.
personally is, what's your superpower? As I've mentioned before.
Yeah.
Then the second one is, okay, now you have your superpower. You've understood why that is your superpower. Now you have to build credibility out of that, because especially as international people in a different country, city,
Mm-hmm.
no one knows you. And we have to build
True.
that credibility and also people backing you up in that skill, superpower, or even a role that you claim to say. How
Mm-hmm.
do we believe you? And especially nowadays, a degree doesn't say much anymore. And then the last one is visibility. If you have a superpower and you have a portfolio, a podcast to back you up, it doesn't matter if you're not putting it out there, being loud or telling someone, hey, you were on my podcast. Can you make a LinkedIn post about it?
Mm-hmm.
It only matters if people know about your superpower. So that's the 3 steps that I like to share.
Okay. And I feel like I have to ask you now, what do you think your superpower is?
I always say that my superpower is being helpful. I think that is the easiest thing for me,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's something that I don't know. If I can help by introducing you to someone, by highlighting what could be your superpower, or helping you understand something that might be not so easy to learn,
Mm-hmm.
I can do it easily, and I like doing it too.
Yeah, I mean, it's so simple, but it makes so much sense. We've now entered the part of the podcast which I like to call the zigzag zone. So I want to know where you're zagging, where everyone else is zigging.
Oh, could you explain that?
So, what's a kind of controversial opinion or a kind of a thing that you're doing which most people don't do? That's what it kind of means.
Okay. Well, as you've heard already, I like to talk a lot about personal branding,
Yep.
and I like to push boundaries when it comes to um, showing off your superpowers.
Mm-hmm.
Not only the aspect of career, but also like in life. I sometimes tell people that it's not lying if you reshape the way you introduce certain aspects of your career or understanding. And what I mean by that is that if you're someone in tech that has been a software developer
Mm-hmm.
and now wants to become an AI expert, um, the fact that you put on LinkedIn that you're an AI expert, but you're just learning, doesn't mean you're lying. It just means
Mm-hmm.
that prove it to me. And if you start
Um,
putting yourself out there in the sense that maybe you're trying the new Ghibli design from ChatGPT today,
mm-hmm.
well, you're developing your AI skills, but just be clear in how, and that's how I'm pushing people to also um, maybe go get out there and reskill themselves because
Mm-hmm.
there's no other way in today's world.
Yeah. It's like a white lie, you could say. It's like a
Yeah.
kind of lie, but you're still learning. So that's I like that. You also talked about you don't have to look the part to be a power player in tech.
Well, that's a
Should we?
good one.
Yeah.
I say that because I grew up thinking that because I was a woman, and then
Mm-hmm.
I'm a Mexican woman. As growing up in the United States and now here, I thought that I didn't have these opportunities of building something of back in the day, growing in that corporate ladder, having a
Mm-hmm.
management position. But then I did, and then
Yeah.
I achieved my first sales for a big company, and then I started my own startup. And I think that that's what I mean when you don't have to look like a white man in a suit
Mm-hmm.
and talk
Mm-hmm.
that talk. You can do it, and you can learn while you're doing it too.
Yeah. That makes so much sense. Like the things that we've been discussing that, people just they don't they don't get it sometimes, which is fair. It's a hard concept to understand. But I would love to now hear about your story time. So I want to know how you first got your first job. How did that happen?
My first job. So today I'm 26 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and I, of course, have been helping my mom out. She's also an entrepreneur. But I
Cool.
don't count that support to my mom as my first job. But I remember one day I was like wanting to break free out of the same routine and
Mm-hmm.
always having to feel like I was following the same box as my mom. And so I applied at an ice cream shop, and it was at Nestle, I believe, Nestle,
Okay, cool.
and that felt for me like empowerment, having my own
Yeah.
money, meeting different people. And from there, it just started kind of happening for me that I met someone that said that, hey, would you like to be a hostess? And then if you come into my first adult job, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
I it was, I believe I turned 18, and I applied as a assistant for this big company named T Systems Mexico. And it just started evolving, shaping into more opportunities, growing. And that's what I mean when sometimes you have to take it and put yourself out there.
Yeah. Start
You
with
never
ice
know.
cream and then get into a corporate job.
Yeah. And I think that's what I try to say to people since I was very young, that opportunities are everywhere and it's up to you if you take them. Because if you don't, then someone else will. And you don't want to miss out on incredible experiences.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Well, that was Super interesting, super awesome. Sadly, we're coming to the end of our podcast, but I have 3 final questions for you. The first one being, imagine it's 2035. What does your company look like? What does your life look like? Where are we?
Well, by then we should have already be in at least 5 capitals around Europe.
Okay.
And probably already entering New York and Los Angeles as markets. We don't see it as countries, we're seeing it as cities because we want to dominate the future of work, as in predicting skills and trends.
Yep.
So we'll be definitely doing that. And I'm for sure thinking that my life won't be stable or quiet. It will be loud and exciting. So I look forward to 2035.
Awesome. That sounds really interesting. And then how can listeners follow along with your journey?
Well, now I'm building my personal brand on Instagram, so people can follow me as, or find me as at Hey with I, underscore Daphne, or LinkedIn. I'm always accepting and connecting, and although I don't answer as fast, I will always answer LinkedIn.
Awesome. And then final question, how can listeners be useful to you?
To me,
Yeah.
if you find an opportunity that you believe is interesting for not only women but underrepresented people, put it my way. But more importantly, if you need help with something, let me know, because that's the best thing that you can do for me, and letting me know that I can help.
Well, that is great. Well, thank you so much for being on my podcast. I'm really looking forward to following on with your journey and seeing you in all of these cities.
Nice.
So yeah,
thank you, Megan, for having me.
Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed this week's show. To make sure you don't miss next week's episode, follow us on your favourite podcasting app. Do consider leaving a review, as it helps the podcast tremendously.